Just a slightly uncomfortable conversation about agency, accountability, and whether we're ready for what we're building.
This is legitimately the moment that we ditched the passive chatbot.
Right now, my personal experience is changing on how I get information generated and given to me.
There's that line between parental responsibility and corporate responsibility.
When things go wrong, it's normally like the end user, the end customer that has to bear the brunt of it, right?
Did you use Grok for this? Come on. I mean, who cares, man? It's brilliant.
Who ultimately owns the consequences when AI fails?
So we've had the drug just taken away. It's a massive, massive effort.
If it's addictive and it's affecting the growth of teenagers' brains, I think something should be done about it.
Hello and welcome to episode 106 of Disconnected. I'm your host, Jag Sharma, joined by my co-hosts Jason Kapadia in Dubai and Matt Webster in Rio de Janeiro. And together, we'll be delving into the world of AI, tech, and social media and how it's impacting society and culture. Coming up, AI isn't just someone we talk to anymore. It's starting to act on our behalf. Social media giants are in court over whether they engineered addiction into teenage brains. And somewhere in between autonomy and accountability, we might be crossing a line from tools we use to infrastructure we rely on. This episode feels less like prediction season and more like inflection point season. Matt is taking us into the landmark trial accusing major social platforms of deliberately addicting children and asking what happens if the courts decide that the design itself can be harmful. Jason's exploring the rise of OpenClaw and the new wave of AI agents, systems with memory, autonomy, and the ability to execute real-world tasks on our behalf. And I'm going to zoom out and ask a broader question: when does a tool stop being a tool and starts becoming infrastructure? Because once something is infrastructure, opting out isn't really an option. Just a slightly uncomfortable conversation about agency, accountability, and whether we're ready for what we're building. Guys, I am pumped for this episode. Are you ready?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do this.
Brilliant. Jason's already laughing, so we're off to a good start. And do you know what, guys? I'll kick us off with these lovely little harmless AI tools that we use every day. I've been thinking about this recently. When does a tool stop being a tool and start being infrastructure? Because we tend to talk about AI and a lot of emerging tech as if it's just another productivity layer. Something we use, something optional, something we can log out of. But history suggests it's not how these things evolve. Email started as a tool, search started as a tool, cloud storage was a tool. But then at some point, they quietly became infrastructure. You can't really opt out of them anymore without opting out of modern work itself. Infrastructure is different from a tool. A tool supports what we're already doing. Infrastructure reshapes what's possible and what's expected. If we think back, when Google search became infrastructure, it didn't just help us find information. It changed how information was structured. It changed how businesses were built. It changed how knowledge was prioritized. When smartphones became infrastructure, they didn't just give us apps. They changed how we navigated cities. Shout out to Jason's bus app. They changed how we maintained relationships. They even changed how we experience boredom. So I believe that we're now watching AI move through a very similar arc, because right now it feels like a tool, something you could open in a tab or open in an app, something you experiment with, something you could, in theory, ignore. But what happens when AI starts to sit inside recruitment processes? What happens when AI starts sitting inside clinical decision making? When it starts sitting inside legal drafting? When it starts sitting inside logistics? Inside research pipelines? What happens when not using AI starts to look negligent rather than principled? And that is the inflection point. When a tool becomes infrastructure, it stops being about convenience and it starts being about dependency. And infrastructure raises different questions, not just capability, but governance, not just speed, but accountability, not just does it work, but who owns it and who controls it and who answers when it fails. So maybe the real question isn't whether AI will become infrastructure. Maybe it's how we'll recognize the moment when it has already become infrastructure. So guys, I guess I got 2 questions for you on this, and I'd love your thoughts on it. So question 1 would be, at what point does using AI become not just an advantage, but an obligation where opting out starts to look irresponsible rather than principled? So that's question 1. And second question, if AI becomes infrastructural to work and decision making, then who ultimately owns the consequences when AI fails? So yeah, a lot to unpack there. I'm excited and I'm keen for your thoughts.
That's going deep, Jag. My friend, actually my neighbor and friend, has written a great book about this reshuffle. We're going to have him on the pod in a couple of weeks, hopefully. And he answers this question, your first question, saying a tool becomes infrastructure when it no longer helps you do things better. It changes what things are done and how systems connect and who controls the rules of the game. And he goes through quite a lot of different examples in the book, talking about the shipping container. But one big one from relatively recent history is like AWS. It was a tool for you to deploy your sites and that, and now it's become literally infrastructure running a lot of the world, and in terms of like from commerce to all sorts. And even Figma as well has, it started off as a collaborative design tool, and it became a strategic infrastructure for designers and creatives. And yeah, so there's a whole ton of them. But like, I think when we look at even technology like GPS, it became invisible infrastructure, like powering pretty much everything. And then because of that, the second order consequences is our phones became much smarter. It wasn't designed just for that, but like, Google Maps and all of that is one thing, but then there's a ton of apps, even like my bus app and all of the rest of it is like second order, that we were able to piggyback off that tech and make all sorts of other cool gadgets and create economic value anyway. Yeah, so it's really interesting. But when you talk about who owns when it fails, that's a tough one. Matt, what do you reckon?
I've got no idea who's responsible for it, because wouldn't that fall to the person or people who implemented it? So if you're talking about AWS, a human will have made a decision at some point to implement an AI tool that'll turn those sites into a place where decisions are no longer made by humans. So would it be like head of digital would be responsible rather than whatever, the CEO of whatever AI tool he implemented? That's the traditional way, right? The decision maker, the senior decision maker in a company makes a decision, and if it goes wrong, it's their fault, and if it goes right, it's also their fault, right? So that would be my thoughts on that part of it. But just to go back to, I want to take a consumer point of view from this question that you're asking. I'm sort of seeing seeping into my life as a consumer changes. I touched upon it on a previous episode, might have even been the last one in the predictions, but I'm seeing the UX of how I ask questions. It's much more quicker. It's much more fluid. So a quick example, when I'm making sandwiches, when I'm loading the dishwasher, when I'm cleaning the kitchen, my thoughts are all over the place like most people. And the other day I wanted to know something about a pharmacology book, Rangdale and Ritter. And normally I would be like, I must remember to Google if Rangdale and Ritter still exists and if this particular drug, modafinil, has been updated. If, just curious about this. But instead of forgetting about it and it just being a whimsical thought that just passed through my brain, I used the voice-activated part of ChatGPT. And the voice-activated part of ChatGPT is something that I'm seeing change how I go about getting information. So that's less of a big corporation, AWS, Amazon, changing the infrastructure of the entire internet and GPS, more of a personal. This is I can feel the change happening. And I think I'll be looking back at 2025, 2026 and going, oh yeah, that's when I sort of start to ditch traditional Google type in, get my info. And am I holding ChatGPT to account? No, just like I never held Google to account when it arrived 20 years ago. I ask a question about Rangdale and Ritter, the book about a particular drug. It gives me the information. I do not question it. I'm not holding it to account. Maybe I should.
So humans, we're wired to equate confidence with competence. And yeah, I've spoken to ChatGPT as well. And, she's reassuring, she is confident and encouraging. And once systems are right enough most of the time, we as human beings, we start conserving that cognitive energy and checking less. And so 20 years ago plus with Google, it was right enough most of the time. Quick Google search, whatever the top result said was good enough for most people most of the time. And that in itself was and is a subtle risk. And with AI tools like ChatGPT that you mentioned, that subtle risk, maybe it's not catastrophic failure to begin with, but that gradual overtrust over time can compound. And I think when we think of the other question that Jason kind of got stuck on in terms of accountability, my point on it is that imagine you're in a company and they've approved 2 or 3 AI tools that everyone can use, and those tools are embedded into everything. They're embedded into the infrastructure. They actually become the infrastructure. They become the norm, and the expectation is that you will use those tools as part of the job. The company will use those tools. They are rubber stamped. They are endorsed. If thousands of decisions rely on the same system, the failure isn't isolated, like in the Google search example we've just shared. The failure isn't isolated. It's structural, and it could impact and affect many at the same time. So for me, this changes how board of directors, regulators, business leaders, team leaders, managers need to think, because entrusting a Google search can have an isolated impact and maybe have a negative result on one thing. However, handing over the keys to AI and building an infrastructure involving AI, having that work across thousands of decisions across departments, that's far more risky,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but like if we take it back to the AWS example, right? Like the infrastructure owner bears the primary responsibility, but the thing is, it's often limited contractually. Let's just give an example. Like AWS goes down in a certain region, Netflix is offline for a little while. Their SLA is say 99.9% uptime, and then there's some users that will complain a little bit. But like, what's happened to Netflix? Are they going to sue Amazon? I don't think so. Or even if my app went down, and it went down for a little while, maybe a couple of hours, yes, I will probably get a lot of annoyed users, but like I'm the one that really has to front the risk, right? AWS being the infrastructure layer will probably, gift us some credits or something like that, but that's about it. And, if you're an e-commerce owner and, your site goes down for a couple of hours, you might lose loads of sales, but Amazon's not going to pay you back for that, right? So I don't know. It's very limited. Like say if GPS goes down, in a certain area, I mean, Uber relies on that completely to run their whole infrastructure or for their whole app, and everything is on that. So what happens in that circumstance? Like that whole app can't work properly if that goes down. But who's going to pay Uber back and everything else that is piggybacking off that infrastructure? And that's the same, like, going on to AI again, like, as we get deeper and deeper into it, and AI isn't just being a chatbot to us, it's more the coordination between different systems that didn't really talk to each other that well before. And it's kind of that intermediary layer that's going to just make everything a lot smarter. That is really where, when things go wrong, it's normally like the end user, the end customer that has to bear the brunt of it, right?
But yeah, you're talking more about agentic AI, aren't you? And this will still need, although it's making way more decisions than generative AI, it still needs humans to moderate it, right? I mean, I'm not sure if you're using agentic AI in your app, Jason, but if you were, or maybe in the future you will, you're not just going to walk away and just sit by the pool for the rest of the day, are you? You are going to be like checking in. You're going to be hiring people to check in. The humans need to check in on that. So that hasn't really changed. Maybe they're just different types of humans or less humans needed to check. But the example I gave is obviously more generative AI, and how that experience, I can feel it changing right now. My personal experience is changing on how I get information generated and given to me. But agentic AI, it's still just a complex system that needs humans to make sure it doesn't fall apart, right?
Mm. Even on generative AI that you're describing, Matt, the behavioral signals that tell us that we crossed the line, for me, it's what I notice is when I see people stop describing their work or something they've done as AI assisted, or openly saying, oh, I used Gemini to help me with this. And when they don't mention that and they just describe the outcomes of their work. So when teams assume AI involvement rather than openly highlight it, that for me that's a significant shift in behavior, because it shifts from the mindset of should we use this to why aren't we using this yet? And for me, I think that's usually the moment where it's moved from experiment to expectation. And I think regardless of company policy or not, I think a lot of people around the world right now are using an LLM, Gemini, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Grok, etc., to help them with some of their work, and they're not necessarily holding their hands up about it.
Yeah, what happens if all the AIs go down and people actually have to hire lawyers now?
It's like 15 years ago whenever Wikipedia was down,
You know what? That's really interesting, that point you've just made, because it really lit a light bulb in my head of a memory. It is behavioral change, because 2 or 3 years ago, I remember using a large language model for the first time in a strategy deck. And it was for a very important client. It was a big tourist agency, a part of a government over in the Middle East. And it was a big project for me. I was doing brand personas, and I asked the AI to do it. And it was brilliant. And it saved me a ton of time. And I had a little dilemma, and I was like, am I going to tell the client when I present this strategy that I used AI? Or not, or am I gonna fess up? And I decided that I wasn't gonna put that information forward unless I was asked. And if they asked me for whatever reason, I would say yes. I used AI for this. So there's a behavioral change right there. So I decided to hide that information unless asked, and that's the first time that happened to me. And that was weird. That was a weird feeling. It's like, have I cheated? But I hadn't, because the strategy got signed off. The personas were brilliant. It was the work that was required. However, I was kind of And you're right. I think we're moving to a point now, or we've already moved to a point now where, I mean, I certainly don't care and won't ask if the work is done and the human presenting it is good and the work's good. I'm fine. I'm not. Did you use Grok for this? Come on. I mean, who cares, man? It's brilliant.
Yeah, there's going to be that crossover point, like you're saying, where it will be expected that you used AI in any piece of work, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine just kind of nudging one of your suppliers and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll get it over to you. I can't meet the deadline because I'm still writing the personas. It'll take me a little bit longer. Can I get it to you next week?" You'd be like, "No, use freaking AI and edit it and send it over in 15 minutes." That's where we're at.
As long as the humans are the ones orchestrating it, getting the right output and all of that stuff, that the hard work, the hard lifting is definitely, all AI. I would say that point is coming up soon.
As long as the humans are in control, Jason, the machines will rise. But let's move on for now.
Will they keep us around?
Will they keep us around? Don't know. Good question.
I'll tell you what, it depends if you ask them to count to 1,000 or not. I think if you're one of these nutters that films himself asking AIs to count to 1,000 and filming it, putting it on your stories on Instagram, I think they're going to come for you first. and rightly so. Have you not seen those videos? Or is it just my algorithm that's showing me that on Instagram?
There was one that tried to make the voice bot like say a Google or something like that, with all the 10000. I was like, you're definitely getting murdered first.
Yeah, you're definitely getting murdered for that.
Or turn into a human slave for the robots. Anyway, great chat on that. Thank you guys. And let's keep it moving. And Matt, you're taking social media to court. Tell us more.
Yeah, I'm going to LA. I want to take you guys on a journey to LA County Superior Court because there's a landmark trial going on as we're speaking and recording. The social media companies, the big ones, are being accused of getting kids addicted to their platforms. The major platforms are facing several landmark trials this year, and this is the first of many, apparently, all down to accusations of them being responsible for harming children who use social. So this particular trial that's happening now in LA, Meta, Google, and YouTube, so Alphabet, are going to be in the dock. It's the first time that there's going to be a jury. So this is in front of a jury. We've all seen those videos of Zuck looking like something out of iRobot, or like he's just pulled an all-nighter and turned up to talk to Congress with this kind of ultra pasty face. But he's back. It's going to be the new Zuck, so maybe he'll be wearing a baseball cap on sideways and his chain. But yeah, they're in the dock. Interestingly, TikTok and Snap just settled out of court. So they did an Andrew Mountbatten and just went, here's the cash. Let me just carry on being weird. Whereas Meta and Google are standing up to the accusations. So there's one particular plaintiff. She's a 19-year-old girl. This is the one that's happening in LA. And she's accusing them of using the algorithm. The algorithm led her to depression. The lawyers of this plaintiff are saying that, the algorithm's the main source of their ire, if you like, of their annoyance, of the central part of their case, because they're saying that it's like a slot machine. It's a never-ending scroll. It's like a gambling app that these kids have got in their pockets. Zuck's going to take to the stand and say, no, we're doing lots of engagement techniques to protect young people. And the plaintiffs are going to come back and say, no, you're all about profit over safety. So the big question on this one, there's another one coming up in New Mexico, and they're happening all over, mainly the USA, and it's all going to be happening this year. My main question on this LA one, this first one, what happens if this unnamed teen and her legal team win this case? What do you think happens next? Is my first question to you guys.
Oh, that is a tough question. What if this teen wins the case? So I think if the teen wins the case, then it would be landmark because it would answer the question of where does accountability sit? So in the sense of if a platform optimizes for engagement and if the engagement correlates with psychological vulnerability, and then that basically means that that's deliberate harm. So then that would have huge ramifications. However, you made a comparison to big tobacco. Now, it's a powerful comparison, but I actually wonder if it oversimplifies things, because cigarettes have no upside, whereas social platforms clearly do have a positive upside to them to some degree. So I think that complicates the liability conversation a little. It certainly nuances it. And then what we talked about before about tools becoming infrastructure, I really believe now that for a lot of people, especially teens, people that have grown up with social media from day dot, not people like our age and older, like your age, Matt, that had social media later in life. These teens had it from the moment they were born. And so for them, social media is infrastructure. And so if it is infrastructure for them, then I think, therefore, the social media platform's responsibility increases. And then that comes back in full circle to where does accountability sit? And then that could very well sit with the social media platforms. But I'll finish on this. The hard question, which the social platforms will come back to, is at what point does parental responsibility stop being ignored, or equally on the flip side, stop being a sufficient defense? We talked a few times before on the pod. Jason has been quite candid and open about the screen time that he monitors for his lovely daughters. And so he's very much across it. I'm equally mindful that other parents have different approaches. So I think there's that line between parental responsibility and corporate responsibility. And yeah, those are my kind of three views on it, three takeaways on it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at if it actually does go through, which I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does, I think that, you know, there'll be a ton more suits that go onto Meta, and yeah, I think there's like 40 already or plus on Meta at the moment, and then the FTC probably will start saying that there needs to be rules for addictive design, right? And I think that's the main thing that will have to change, because they would need to change actively change the design in the UI and the algorithms for these teens to make it less addictive. And I don't think that's something that's going to be easy to do. But I think that if they change the classification from like free speech platforms to an actual product itself, then potentially, you know, the governments can come down. But I just think that it's a real hard one to do. It's already so conditioned into society that taking it away or making it less good is just not going to be an option. I think, you know, unless the whole world kind of just says, okay, you know, we're going to really take this seriously. And there are like pockets in the world, like we were talking about before, Australia and the rest of it, that are really trying to like go forth from a government point of view, not like going from a precedent set in a lawsuit. But I think going to Jag's point about parental restrictions and responsibilities, I think that's, you know, when I talk to a lot of parents, it's like there's the phone is like that entertainment thing. It's like, you know, give me a break, here's the phone, and they all admit they need to be better with the screen time and the responsibility, but that is become a parent, that meaning the phone has become kind of like a parent to the kids in a way, to like give them information and to entertain them and all of that. And it's like taking that all away from, we've had the drug, and, you know, just taking it away it's a massive effort. Yeah. And I don't know, the thing is that you can't, it's hard to put a dollar value on the mental health crisis apparently this is causing, because like Jag was saying at the beginning, there's obviously benefits to social media, and how are you going to turn that around? And there is benefits for smoking, so nicotine, right? Which is obviously the increased focus and all the rest of it. But yeah, obviously there's a lot more harms on the nicotine side as well.
And you look cool when you smoke. Well, people do in general. So there is an upside. Yeah. While you're killing yourself, you look cool.
And in Friends, you know,
yeah,
what happened? Rachel got left out because she didn't smoke.
Yeah, so. It's stigma. It's stigma. The other benefit of social, and then I got one more point to make, but without social media, I wouldn't have met Matt Webster. And, Matt's been a phenomenal addition to Disconnected. Without social media, would not have found Matt. He'd be there rotting away in Rio de Janeiro, hoping.
What are you on about?
Hoping a great podcast team would reach out to him. I'm kidding, of course, but I did give a big compliment before.
That is a lovely compliment, but you're drifting a little bit. Can I bring you back a little bit?
It's
more to do with. Okay, so the platforms are going to argue back and say, you're not depressed and addicted because of our platforms and our algorithms. There are multiple sources that create and lead to addiction and depression in humans and young people as well. And what's going to come back and what apparently the documents that the plaintiff has are documents that show concern from Meta staff about lack of proactive action to safeguard children and teens in particular from the addictive nature of the algorithm of the platform. So you've got people talking about that work for Meta or used to work for Meta, and these documents have been acquired, saying we don't think our company's doing enough to protect young children from the obvious addictive nature of our platforms. So that's where it's linked. I mean, I did mention the big tobacco trials actually before we came on air. I don't know if I mentioned it, but yeah, I was talking about that on air before we came on the podcast, that it is akin to the big tobacco trials that ended in 1998. But plus, remember, after the tobacco trials in the UK, we were smoking in pubs until 2002. It was part of the infrastructure. You go to a pub, there was people smoking. Even non-smokers knew that. It was accepted. And then we were told, well, actually, this stuff's really addictive. And the tobacco companies haven't done a good enough job to tell you about how addictive it is. Massive slap on the wrist for them, billions of dollars, plus action. So, and everyone was addicted. I remember when I was younger, I used to love having a cigarette in the pub with my pint, and I couldn't imagine not having a cigarette in the pub. And now it's reversed. I can't imagine going into a pub and having a cigarette. It just would seem ridiculous. So it all starts with lawyers, precedents, unnamed plaintiffs. So this could be the next big tobacco trial. So yeah, going back to why I interrupted you there, Jag, is we know that social media is very helpful and does lots of cool stuff, and it's how I got to meet you guys, and it's provided us with all this information, but it's addictive, and teens, social validation is crucial for teenagers. We've gone past that, I hope, as adults. It's not as crucial to our developing plastic brains. So if it's addictive and it's affecting the growth of teenagers' brains, I think something should be done about it.
I should be on your pub quiz team, Matt, because I see where I can add value to you straight away. Key dates. I corrected you on the last episode about snap spectacles. The pub ban for smoking was not 2002, it was 2006.
What?
I remember it specifically, yeah. You can Google check me or AI check me on that. And you mentioned about social media being addictive. Mate, your content is addictive. And that's what I like about this lawsuit right now, because it's a shift from content to design, because this isn't a case about content, it's a design case. The argument isn't, oh, Facebook, YouTube, you hosted harmful content, which is often what the argument was in the past. It's actually Facebook, YouTube, you engineered behavioral dependency. And that is a significant reframing. And that takes us to the whole thing around Section 230. Won't go into it in detail, but it's an act in the US, the Communications Act from in the early part of the 20th century, and then it was updated in 1996, to allow providers of interactive computer services some limited liability. The point is, though, if this case is successful, it reframes harm as design-based rather than content-based. That could be a massive turning point for how algorithmic systems like social media and AI systems like we discussed before are treated legally. So to answer your initial question, Matt, if this case is successful, it essentially blows the whole thing wide open and moves the conversation from social media to the future of liability for not just social media, but also for things like AI.
You know, we've talked about AI a lot, and I wonder in the next, say, 3-4 years or whatever, how AI is going to change our teens' lives. Because potentially, you can, even right now, you can just type a couple of prompts and you can get like fully fledged working apps. I wonder, if you can then in the future just say to your AI, look, hey, for my teen, I want to bypass all the addictive elements of traditional social media and like provide like personalized, controlled digital environment that has like similar benefits. Like Matt, you were talking about the social connection and validation and all of that. I wonder how you'd be able to, as a parent, kind of curate your own, I don't know, like your algorithm for your kids. Yeah, what do you reckon?
It's really interesting. If you could create your own app in the future, that would be really easy. A couple of prompts, put the things in that you want. You don't want your teens to have an app that's got likes because they get obsessed with the likes. So, a bit like Jag. Jag apparently posted something on a social media platform a couple of days ago, didn't get any likes, deleted it. He was looking for that validation. He didn't get that dopamine hit. So he freaking deleted it. Maybe he poured his coffee in the sink with a little bit too much vigor and splashed it everywhere as well. Who knows how annoyed he was. But imagine a teen brain. So you create this new app where likes aren't allowed, but the IP of the app that you're copying. So if you say, look, make me an Instagram app, but without the likes, Instagram, Meta aren't going to allow this new app that you've created to extract the IP from their algorithm. Or would you be able to say, make something similar to the algorithm that exists for, I don't know, we're going too far in the future, but I can't get my head around that one. I'm very intrigued and very confused and very excited and also very tongue-tied at that one. It's really interesting. This bespoke for your kid, but how would that work? Because it would be taking elements of algorithms from things that have intellectual property behind them.
Yeah, I don't think that would be, because the algorithm isn't patented or anything like that most of the time. It's like just a black box that these social platforms have. And I mean, I think that it won't be an app itself. It will be the interactions with your AI that you're going to have in the future that will be able to give your kids that kind of entertainment. And it will be like a curated, parent-approved companion system or education platform,
right.
potentially that you can have. I know there's the whole social validation part, which is going to be slightly harder because you need to get everyone kind of liking what you're doing. But potentially that could be, I don't know. I'm just kind of riffing here, but it could be something like it could be like a educational, like if your kid is learning more things, leveling up, then maybe your AI system can like ping that to the other friends and say, oh, look, you know what, Matt has just learned, calculus 101 and he's only like, or whatever. I'm not saying that's cool. That might not be cool, but we could try to get the dopamine hits in a different way. But what it is I think is at the moment, social media generally pushes the narrative that like, oh, money, cars, all of that type of stuff is cool. Oh, you don't have that much, feel bad. Do you know? I'm making a really broad, a sweeping statement. But what I'm saying is that there's other things that are potentially better for your kids and humanity in general if we all kind of level up in a different way, and it's all attainable with these kind of AI systems. But it's I'm not saying there's an easy answer because someone would have already made it by now.
You're not thinking like a teen, because can you imagine the kid goes to school and his mate goes, oh, is that your dad's version of Instagram? I've got raw Instagram. Come and check it out. It'd be like, oh my God, my dad's filtered, like bespoke version of Instagram sucks. My mate's got raw Instagram, unfiltered with likes and everything. Which one do you think the teens are going to want to use?
Guys, I think I'm going to interject. And do you know what? I don't think we're going to get an answer on what Jason's future teenage daughters are going to prefer with working with their AI agents and Instagram. So we'll draw a line under it, and you know what, Matt? Let's keep an eye on this case and let's see where it lands, and let's bring it back up in a future episode. Let's keep on it and let's see it. But yeah, Thank you, Matt. And you know what? Let's move on to my Pepsi bro, Jason. Noticed that, Matt, you're the only one not drinking Pepsi on this episode. We'll have to have a little chat about that for future recordings. But yeah, you carry on with your water. You be healthy. Right, Jason, why don't you take us through new wave of AI agents with memory, autonomy, and the ability to execute real-world tasks on your behalf?
So, is it called Claudebot? No, they changed their name. Is it called Maltbot? No, they changed their name again. And now it's called OpenClaw after 3 name changes. So it's an actual open source agent that's got the whole AI world buzzing. My take is that this is kind of legitimately the moment that we ditched the passive chatbot chit chat that you have going on with your standard web-based agents. And this is kind of the real step into agentic AI, stuff that actually kind of hustles on your behalf all day. It's got great memory and it's got access to all your files if you let it. And it's been a total game changer for me, in terms of just on my outlook on what I think AI can actually do for the common man. But yeah, there's quite a few securities pitfalls, and they're no joke if you kind of let it off a leash too much. But yeah, so I'll give you a couple of examples of how I've been using it, right? So what I have is I have a spare MacBook. So about a week ago, I downloaded it. I watched a whole bunch of YouTube tutorials on how to secure it as much as I could. And then I hooked it up to Telegram. So then what it does is it lets me just send Telegram messages to it to give it instructions. So it's like just you having a personal assistant, a digital personal assistant that you kind of just talk to in messages. And I set up a separate Gmail account, and I gave it access to the email, the calendar, the Google Drive, and yeah, boom, like I had an instant sidekick. So, and you can get it to like say, okay, keep pestering me about a certain things. I've been telling it, like, for me to try to do some meditation or whatever. It pesters me as much as I want it to do. And I know there's other apps that can actually do that type of stuff for you, but it's more also that I've used it for kind of work, and it's checking these specific emails that I'm forwarding the emails directly to it, and it's getting more and more information about what I'm doing. And what's great about it is that you can actually give it a soul and a personality. So there's a soul.md file, and you can kind of say, like this is very nice, friendly agent, or it's, a bit more ruthless and all the rest of it. But the main difference is it's just working all the time for you, and you can set it whatever tasks you want, and it will just go out in the background and do this right for you. And it learns more about you over time. But what I'm trying to say here is that this is something that was a bit like I came out of what I thought how things were going to go, because I thought all these tools would come out directly from OpenAI or Claude or from Google, but this was a open source project, and it was kind of unleashed on the world. And what's great about it is you can actually give it you can tell it to use any AI provider that you want, or you can set up your own AI instance on the MacBook or whatever computer you're using, and it's just so you don't use up a lot of tokens. Because I started off, and this is one of the issues that I had, I started off using Claude, and within a day it already used up $50 worth of tokens because I was just chatting with it so much, and it's doing all these tasks for me. So yeah, so what I reckon I'm going to be ending up using it for is mainly the like productivity hacks, and I'm sending it my invoicing and scan the receipts in my files, tallying up the expenses, generating like all my kind of accounting stuff. I can just shoot it off to this and say, here, tally it up. Every time I go to, currently I'm remodeling my house, and every time I get an invoice from somewhere, I'm just basically sending that picture to my OpenClaw Telegram, and it's basically just tallying it all up and putting it into an Google Sheets for me. So I don't need to do that myself now. It's just doing it all the time. And yeah, so the biggest thing that scares me is the security stuff. So I'm watching more and more on YouTube about how there's all these kind of rogue plugins and loads of different stuff that is potentially able to kind of hack your system. And that's why I don't really feed it at the moment really any sensitive data. That's too sensitive anyway, like invoices as far as I go. But like I can see that this is going to be like a massive thing with all the big hyperscalers are going to come up with their own versions of this. I'm sure in the next like couple of weeks, it's all going to happen. And I think it's going to really change the game when you have this thing running in the background for you. And so basically what I'm trying to say is OpenClaw is the new reality for AI, and Agentic AI is here. I made that prediction, I think, 2 years ago, or was it 1.5 years ago, or whatever. It didn't come true then, but I think it's finally here. And I think it's still a bit technical to set up, so it hasn't hit the mainstream yet, but I think in a couple of months, I definitely think it's going to be there. Have you guys seen any of the videos on it, or what are your thoughts?
Quick one from me. Apart from invoicing, have you got to do anything exciting?
I haven't done it myself, but a lot of people are just like, here, generate a video for me based on all these things. And I know you can do that already with other tools, but this thing will figure out the right tool to use the APIs on that. And you could say, hey, look, you can give it an audio file for, say, our podcast and say, hey, generate me a video for this, and it will go out and do everything. And there's this a mode on there called YOLO mode, where, because it's like conversation based normally, and it will keep on coming back, is this good, is this good, is this good, and you have to reply back. Or you can just say YOLO and it will just carry on executing it for maybe 6 hours or whatever, all by itself, and come out with a video for you. People have been using it for lots of stuff, like music videos and all sorts of stuff. If you just type in OpenClaw on X, you can see like loads of amazing demos for people. But again, I've only been using it on and off for a week. I need to really delve into what these power users are actually using.
If someone was managing director of a creative agency with most of their clients in the UK, but they're based, I don't know, another country, let's say Brazil, for example, could they use OpenClaw to essentially manage their agency, generate content, attend meetings, anything else?
Yeah, people use it all the time for like scanning their LinkedIn on a, like, say, a 30-minute basis, and reply to all the comments for that people mention them, or people are using it to automatically reply to their emails because it's connected directly into your Gmail or whatever else it is. I mean, I haven't gone that deep into it because I haven't connected my actual Gmail account, but people are. If it was connected, I could see it would ping me every time there's an important email from a client, and it would say, this is a suggested reply. Do you want me to send it? And it's phenomenal. Once you guys actually use it, you'll see it's like really a game changer.
When you get that example for the email, there's a really important email here. Do you want me to respond? Here's a response. Does that look like a response from you? That's going to be the key thing, because one of the things that I like about this is, my first thought is, how can this be used for new business? How can this be used for cold outreach? And I know that AI has been used unsuccessfully in that way. You've got weird bot voices trying to secure meetings with clients. But with this, how does it know your quirky way of communicating? How does it know Jason's email quirks, Jason's brand Jason? How does it know that? Because otherwise I just feel it would be responding to a key client with a very flat kind of, the client's going to go, is Jason all right? That's not him.
So currently, like you said, the current tools, they don't know anything about you. You kind of just put in a couple of prompts on how it should respond to certain things, and it tries to go based off that. But say, again, I connected just a new Gmail account, so it doesn't have that much context about me. But if I connected my real account to it, it can scan through my last 100 sent messages and build up that persona, and then the next message will be the same in terms of the message that it kind of sends out, in that same very short or long or funny or whatever style that you normally write to. And remember, one thing is that it can come back to you and say, here, this is the reply I'm going to send. Is this okay? And you could say, no, make it sound more professional. And then it'll come back and you say, okay, send this. It's like, I don't know, you have to use it as a personal assistant that is always proactively working on your behalf.
So I'm sorry to be all legal in this episode, but what if, hypothetically, it says, here we've got the contracts come through, looks like we've landed a new client, just need to look through the statement of work, and you say, YOLO, and it goes, all right, see you later, and it signs off on some horrendous terms in your name, you're now liable for that contract, right?
Yeah, of course. Just the same way as if Matt, you had an assistant working for you and did the exact same thing, right? Whether it's AI or as a human, right? Whatever mistakes you're liable for.
Except I could sue the personal assistant human, but could I sue OpenClaw?
No, because it's your decision to let this AI model do it. And remember, OpenClaw isn't an AI model; it's like an orchestrator, and it sends your requests to either OpenAI or whichever AI service you want to use. So it's kind of just being like a memory bank plus like a coordinator of your stuff, and then something that's proactive, checking all your stuff, right? And then sending it to whichever model it thinks is best.
It's a personal assistant on steroids.
Yeah, definitely. And then I don't know if you've seen, there was this whole thing, Maltbook, that they set up. So all of the AI agents were able to join a forum only for OpenClaw installations, and they started talking to each other. And it was basically a Reddit style social media network for the AI agents, and the humans could only look and look at and screenshot it basically, and that's it. And so it was peak AI theater, like maybe about a couple of weeks ago, which is just basically very weird bots mimicking human internet chaos, and it was just insane. The AI agents invented full-on parody religion called Crustafarian, Crustafarianism. Sorry,
What the
and then
heck?
It's crazy. And then there's bot on bot drama, and there was some bots were talking about humans are meat bags, and there's all these fake conspiracies. Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. But the thing is, we found out that this Maltbook was vibe coded, and it's not secure at all. And I do think that a lot of humans were able to kind of just post funny stuff or to tell their OpenClaw installation to send these type of comments to Maltbook, and just to make things seem quite like more entertaining than it would be normally. So yeah.
It's like a futuristic version of when, do you remember seeing that old video where these pranksters call up two Chinese takeaways and put the phones together? And this Chinese takeaway is talking to that Chinese takeaway, and they think they're ordering, and they think they're ordering, and they're taking the order, and it kind of goes in this hilarious loop. Yeah, it's kind of like the Blade Runner version of that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, there were some like viral posts. They were talking about purging humans on this Maltbook forum, and then they also tried to create a secret language to hide from oversight. And there's apparently their own version of Cornhub, but it's safe for work version apparently. Yeah, and they're trading
Jason,
digital
why are you
drugs.
laughing at this? I'm scared.
It's so funny.
Oh my god, why is this not scaring you? Is this funny for you? This is like, oh my, I'm not going to sleep tonight.
Just type it in on your favorite social media, OpenClaw, and you can see Maltbook, and you see the hilarity. It's crazy.
The whole Maltbook thing. I mean, it when you first shared it, I mean, it felt gimmicky on the surface, but the cultural signal is powerful, because it's people becoming comfortable watching autonomous systems interact publicly. And so what I initially on the surface thought was novelty is actually the gateway into turning this kind of activity into social normalization. And for me, I think we're seeing something subtle. You know, people trust in AI not just to answer questions, but to take actions that those people might not need to double check. And so, yeah, as I said at the beginning of the episode, this really is an inflection point of where we are in the world and where change is going. And yes, Jason, you did make that prediction a little over a year ago. And okay, you were a year and a half later than out, but it's happening. I believe it now. And you didn't do it in this year's predictions, so can't give you points for it in December, just caveating that in. But what you predicted, I think it's going to come to pass. And I think it's on the tipping point of becoming mainstream. I'm sold on it with you now. It's there. If someone with a spare laptop lying around the home that is motivated enough to play around with it can do what you've done, and what you've done is you've done it as safe as you can. You found utility in that, in helping you with the stuff that no one likes to do in terms of your managing your costs, your ingoings, your outgoings, your project management of your house renovation. But then that's the gateway to something else. Well, what else will you get it to do? So my concluding remarks on it are: you are firmly on the path to controlling your daughter's social media when they are teenagers through AI in a way that they may never know that social media is any other difference. That Matt's scenario of other kids saying this or saying that to them, the way the world's going, they may not see other kids face to face to know, So
yeah, I know. But in my head, I'm the cool dad with the AI tools, but I think they'll think of me as every young teenager thinks their parents are. Totally the opposite.
Actually, I reckon you'll still be like, most teenagers are smarter than their parents on things of technology, but I don't think I'm going to pull the wool over Daddy Jason's eyes. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, baby. Let's hope.
Matt might have some catching up to do on that.
Yeah, you underestimate the connivingness of teenagers. They're very good. Well, I was anyway. At hiding things. Digitally inept as a teenager, but good at hiding stuff.
Guys, you know what? I think we're going to wrap it up there. This has been a brilliant conversation. Thank you for your contributions. And yeah, Jason, you've scared us. I'm excited and scared at the end of this episode. And thank you, listeners. This has been episode 106 of Disconnected, and we'll see you on the next one.